All members present, and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. First on the agenda is open forum and public input, which there's no one here, so we will move to the next agenda item. Approve agenda, changes to the agenda.
So we're going to add under item number 9, discussion items of letter H, proposed November calendar change. And we'll explain that when we get to that point. So,
We need a motion to approve.
So moved.
second.
Moved by Leishner, second by Schoenfelder. Any other, to approve the agenda with that addition? Any other changes or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, next on the agenda is conflicts of interest, which there are none listed or anything new, so we'll move to the next. 7 is approved consent agenda. The board will discuss and approve past month board minutes and current claims. So A is approve August minutes, B approve claims, C approve contracts. The board will approve coaching contracts for the following positions: Dan Bonte, head wrestling coach; Jeff Harris, assistant wrestling coach; Brady Knowles, assistant wrestling coach; Sean Jolly, junior high boys basketball coach; Cole Knipling, head girls golf coach; Gwen Wormers, paraprofessional KitchenAid; and Mary Whitehill, paraprofessional. I need a motion to approve. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Neville, second by Leishner. Any other discussion? Hearing none.
I just want to put,
Yep, what's up,
is Gwen Wormers, is that potentially our, is this just an assistant, or is that possibly our person that might replace our head cook down there?
No, it's filling the hole that we got right now.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we haven't ventured down that road yet, Mr. Rowe. That's a good question. So,
All right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, we'll move to number 8, information, discussion, staff reports. The board will listen to updates from administration on current programs, projects, good news, and education information. We'll hear from the high school principal first. Yeah.
Okay, boy, you looked at the calendar and wrote down everything that's happened between now and then, and it's busy. You know, if you look at I think this Friday is the end of the first quarter already, so going pretty quick. And as we approach that deadline, here's kind of the stuff that's happened since the last time I saw you. You know, we had homecoming the week after the last school board meeting. I thought everything worked pretty well. We tried some different stuff. Added some skits to coronation to try and pep it up, and extended our class Olympics during the day to put a little bit more fun time. We decorated the hallways, we decorated the doors of the classrooms, and so we tried to make it feel a little bit more festive, and I feel like everything was pretty well received, except for maybe the changing to skinny days wasn't super well received, and that'll probably be a one-time off, but it was, we tried a lot of new things, and I appreciate everybody for doing that, and it was fun. So we did ASVAB testing. The juniors did ASVAB testing, I believe that same week, and we've gotten our results back. And some even wanted to redo it, so that's been pretty good and pretty successful, and seems like it's gone really well, so we appreciate the National Guard for helping us get that done. We entered the Q107 Quiz Bowl, and we were victorious in our first match. We beat Ethan, so have some bragging rights with a neighboring school district, which was awesome. All seniors on that, so it's Kiana Hargens, Wyatt Wurtzer, Kayla Nagebauer, and then Ashlyn Tapio and Caleb Weber are our alternates. That'll kind of rotate in as we go. We play them again in early November. It's either Menno or Huron next, so we'll see who we take down then. We had parent-teacher conferences about a week ago, or just a little bit more. The MVP was Mrs. Solik. She never got up. She was literally busy from, was it 3:30 until 9:30? And there she had a line the whole time, so that was pretty neat. But overall, it was very well attended. And everything that came out of it was positive. So that was a nice night. I thought we got a lot done. We kind of made a change. Mr. McKinnon kind of talked about We shifted it before the end of the first quarter, with the hope being is you could kind of get the word out and have some conversations while you could still make some adjustments to improve that first quarter grade, and I thought that's a good thing. I think we've seen, as always, we've seen an uptick in terms of some kids that were maybe struggling start to do well, and you kind of get those understanding conversations where you discuss maybe some questions you have with the teacher, and you start to, almost like the parents become more advocates for what we're trying to get done in the classroom. So I think that's been really good. So we had our second in-service was today. I think the last time we'd met was our first in-service, and then our second in-service was today. Really set the stage for starting to, now that we're coming out of COVID, we're actually going to have some data that we can use to kind of drive the conversation as to how to improve and where we're doing well and where we're not doing well. And so we kind of started to show them where we can dig into some data, and now the next step will be to actually do that and come out of it with some chances to improve. I think we've had staff meetings. I've kind of implemented that we have a weekly staff meeting. I think that's gone well. We've used that to have some good conversations towards our goals of improvement. And the next step is really, I've got a lot of handbook changes I really want to make. And I know sometimes that's done in the summer, but I'm probably going to be bringing them to you in the next month or two, with the idea being, since we register for classes in February, and a lot of these changes would pertain to what we're registering for and so on and so forth. So if you're okay with it, I'd be coming with some updates to the handbook, and maybe even some, if you're okay with, there'd be a couple that I'd even institute at semester time if we thought it was allowable and okay. So be prepared for that in the November meeting. I was hoping to have a couple done for today, but it's kind of a crazy day. We had our first department meeting today. I think our math department met for an hour and a half after school today. So that was kind of fun to start those conversations for how we can improve and build a new vision for what we're trying to change for the better. So it's been good. And I just want to leave with, parks and kids are great. In talking to a lot of principals from around the area, even neighboring schools that are an hour away or so, you always look at any problems we're having are pretty low level problems. Like we're trying to get our kids to be good kids, where other ones are struggling with drug use and this and that and the other. Like in there, we've got really good kids, and it's going really, really well. So just be aware that we're doing pretty well, especially when you hear some of the stories coming from around us. So it's been good. You guys got any questions for me? No?
Thanks,
Thank you,
cool.
guys.
All right. Good evening, guys. Couple things. Kind of Cole covered a lot of the stuff. It's been a lot going on. It's been a busy month since we've last been together. Conferences, I feel like, went really well for us. We had 96% attendance. I think we had about 10 parents that weren't able to make it out of pre-K through 5th grade. So very well attended. I think, big credit to our teachers for really advocating to try to get all the parents in, and I think they did a great job with that. And then obviously a big thank you to all the parents that took the time out to come in and meet with everybody. It makes a huge difference having that parent involvement and parent support, and really thankful for that. It was a really, really good night, busy the whole time, and exciting. With that, the 9 weeks ends on Friday, so we'll be shoring up grades and getting report cards ready to send home next week. So it's crazy how fast the school year is flying by. I think things are going pretty well. I have a couple of things. I talked to you guys last meeting that my goal would be to get the teachers to kind of share a few things. So I have 2 things for you. First, I'm going to share one thing, and then Mrs. Larson's here taking notes. So I asked her if she would share a little bit about something that she's doing in her classroom, and she's going to talk about the 7 mindsets. So I'm really excited to have her and that she's willing to get up and talk for a minute. But I want to pass this around. I was talking with our school guidance counselor today, and she was sharing some data that she had put together from essentially the first 7 weeks. And so I thought that would be interesting for you guys to see and to look at, just so you can have an idea of some of the things that are going on in the building. I thought it was a pretty good graphic. So you can see some of the behaviors that we're seeing is the first sheet. So you can see some of that and some of the things that she's working with, that all of us are working with. It's a team effort in the elementary side of things, but so you can kind of look through that, and then you can go to the second page, and that tells you the location of where we're seeing those behaviors. And so you can kind of see, home, the classroom, different places, the playground, different areas to see there. And then the third page is the interesting, that's the encounters. So that's her then touching base with, if you see a family one, that could be, a student coming to her with just sharing like, hey, this was happening at home. Or it could be her calling home on things that maybe she's heard about from a teacher, different things. So I thought it was interesting information. I love that she's tracking that, because what this will allow us to do then, and she just got this program that she's using to track this data, so we're not sure if we'll be able to compare from quarter to quarter yet, or if this is maybe going to be a semester thing, or maybe even a year-long thing. But regardless, we have data that we can start to look at and then think about, okay, how can we use this to see, okay, we're seeing a lot of issues on the playground. What can we do? Do we need to get somebody else out there? Or, is there some other conversation that needs to take place, or some other things that we can do intervention-wise to try to help? So, I think this is really good, and so I was excited to share that with you guys. And then on the back page, I think it's just some more like the actual numbers of that. And you can see a couple groups conducted. We're going to start small groups with our counselor this week. And so she groups certain students together to come eat lunch with her and have conversations, usually in dealing with some of these issues, but it's also part relationship building and eventually lending itself to, hey, I noticed that you're not getting along with a lot of students out on the playground, or different things like that. So that's what a group is, and so it kind of takes a couple weeks to figure out those dynamics. So she'll be implementing that stuff this week now. So you'll see those zeros, those will start to mount there. So I thought it was some interesting stuff. Thought maybe you guys would like to see it. And with that, I'm going to introduce Mrs. Larson. She's going to talk a little bit. We talked, you guys allowed us to move forward with our ESSER funds with 7 mindsets. And Mrs. Larson is going to talk just a little bit about what they're doing in her 2nd grade classroom. So.
Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
Did she implement or do these things on her own, or is this something that you guys had visited about, or?
She came to me, we talked last spring about how to track it. And we couldn't really find she found this tool, actually on Teacher Pay Teachers to track it. And so she was able to follow through.
Awesome.
She's doing some really good things.
Cool, thank you.
Thanks, Mrs. Larson.
Sure. I'm Mrs. Larson. I'm teaching 2nd grade. I can stand in front of 20 kids and not nervous, and then here we go. So you purchased the 7 Mindset program for us, and we do a lesson every week. And as you see out in the hallway, there's all our posters. So these would be the 7 mindsets that we're working on. And the first month was called Everything is Possible. So with that, we have lessons that are online, but also activities that we do in the classroom. So in my 2nd grade, this last week, actually a couple weeks, we've been working on being a hero. Being a hero in our classroom, being a hero with our families, being a hero in the community. And the main idea with the 7 mindsets is to build a positive school relationship where they actually see the action, where they're learning how to interact with others. And the main idea is that you have a growth mindset where you think you can do things versus a fixed mindset where you're saying kind of negative things, you don't know if you can do it. So we've been working on that. Now tomorrow we're having the firemen come, so then we're going to write a letter to them thanking them for their service. And as some of you might know, in November we write a letter to veterans. I have families give me names, and then we find other names of veterans. We write to them and they correspond back with us, and then we also turn it like into a social studies lesson. Then the month after we're going to be, of course, thanking them for their service. And the month after we're going to write a letter to the people in the nursing home thanking them for their contributions to Parkston and the area. So the main idea is just to get that positive thought. I had wrote this down so I wouldn't forget. Mrs. Kafka has a train and teach class, and she sends a student down to my room once a week. So she's an extra set of hands to help them make responsible decisions.
Awesome. Great, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it's been really fun to see the 7 mindsets take off in the building. Once a week, teachers are going through a lesson, and then they have activities that go with them. And the big thing, that stuff was happening, but what this program gave us is a common language. so that we're all speaking the same language. When we talk about everything is possible or passion first, now, kindergarten, preschool, my preschooler, all the kids, preschoolers through 5th grade, are all saying those same things, to the extent of, I had a young first grader in my office the other day, and we're talking about, what choices he's making and different things like that. And I said, well, I don't know if that's, the best way to go about it. And he's like, well, Mr. Fisher, everything is possible. I said, oh, you're right, you got me there. So, it's, when you hear those things, it's like, hey, all right, he's hearing some stuff. We're getting through them a little bit. So it's good things like that. So, yeah, I thank you, Mrs. Larson, for coming in and sharing that. I
And all the
appreciate
teachers
that.
are doing this. It's
Yes.
like all the.
Yep, all the teachers are taking about 30 to 40 minutes a week, and then whatever other time they dedicate to activities like Mrs. Larson explained there. So, yeah, that's the elementary side. AD-wise, it's, things are wrapping up. We're getting to the end of the fall seasons. Golf just finished up. They had a great showing at the state tournament. Our team qualified, placed 3rd in regions, and so the whole team got to go to state, which was exciting. Peyton Kane kind of paced the team, finishing 11th, which, had a great showing. He's only a junior, so he'll be back. We had a young team. So excited for their success. And competitive cheer was doing something kind of wild today. We lost the competition because of dates switching around a little bit on us, and so today they went to 2 competitions, which is a little unheard of, I think. They went out to Fulton this morning, and then they were going to finish up in Bonhomme tonight. So, but they're starting to really peak and kind of be right where they want to be heading into state. They finished 4th in Mitchell on Saturday, finished 2nd at the Fulton competition, and waiting to hear how Bonhomme goes tonight. So excited for them. Football's doing well. They just finished their season, 1 loss, and sitting in the 5 seed right now, so which you get to hopefully host the playoff game. And band just had a competition that they went to and marched in. So really excited just with the way things are going. Volleyball, is getting to the end. They got a couple games left, and then we'll see how their postseason goes. So cross country has regions this week. So it's kind of that time where everything we kind of see, the kids have been working really hard, and see how it all ends up now. So yeah, that's the AD report. So, one other thing I was going to mention too, we had talked previously, Tony and I have been working. We have our digital touchscreen record board is up in the lobby. It's not completely done yet. We're going to get a frame around it, but if you get a chance in the lobby now, you can see that in there. We were able to go ahead with that, and we're starting to get some data on there. That'll be a process to get everything uploaded, but Tony's already got a yearbook on there. One of the things we want to do is get a bunch of old yearbooks, and so you can literally go on that screen and touch and flip through each page and see that. And so we want to try to get some of our history on there. I talked to Mark's Photography about getting some of the old class composites and starting to get those uploaded on there, as well as some of our sports teams and their records and National Honor Society. So it's going to take some time, but eventually it'll be a pretty cool thing, I think, to have, and a welcoming thing as people come in the lobby. So
just to add to that, there's also a link on our school webpage. It says Parkston Touch Pro. You click on that, then you'll be able to see the exact same thing that's on that board.
Okay, is that on there right now?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Tony and I thought that would be a nice for people that don't live in the community to still have access to all those things, so that you don't have to come into the lobby to see it, but also have availability to access that. So pretty excited about that.
Mr. Fisher?
Yeah.
How did our preschool numbers end up this year?
Preschool, we're at 38 kids right now. Yeah. 38 preschoolers, we have 47 kindergartners. So,
Nice.
yeah, that'll be something we're probably talking about in a couple months. So, yeah. And I do want, student council is going to start their food drive, John, so I want to touch base with you on that after this meeting too. So. Any questions for me? Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you. All right, what do you got?
Yeah, just a few things on that same note, in case you're wondering what else is happening in the commons area with the trophy cases. You can see everything's been sheeted, all the mirrors have been masked over and stuff, so we're waiting for basically the vinyl wrap banners that are to go in, the backdrops of all those before we can reinstall the rails, the glass shelving, and move all the trophies back into there. So if that, I'm hoping by November, but don't hold me to that. So it's a work in progress. So In my report, just that I'm not gonna address every component in there, but I wanna let you know the lighting update, because I brought that to you last month. Within my notes, Craig and I got some information from Ace, our electrical engineer, and some things that were essentially they were missed on the footprint, so they wanted to know if we wanted to upgrade in those areas to an LED component. Craig and I walked the footprint. We didn't really see the necessity to do that. I mean, the cost to do so, the quotes that they gave us were pushing about $6,000 to upgrade all the rest of them, and they're just in areas that they're out of sight, they're out of mind, and the lighting that's in there is perfectly acceptable. So I wanted to let you know where that stood. The Army roof is finally done and over with, that project. We got the warranty, everything's good. Our ADM update, hopefully we'll see what the DOE says, but 542, so we got paid on 514 last year, so that's a good step forward. Your school board recognition, I just wanted to bring your attention to that. If you look behind you on the wall, there's a silver level, and then you've got your bronze level 1 sitting there too. So that has to do with points accumulated for any interactions that you guys have over a course of a school year, that you engage in anything from Associated School Boards processing to get points towards. So it's a nice job on that. School board development, put 21st on your calendar. It's a done deal. November 21st. I know we talked about it last month, but I did get back with Mr. Holbeck for 100% sure in 6:30. Social studies standards, I just gave you some information about that. I don't really want to address that other than you can see the numbers that were embedded in that process. If you still would like to comment on the social studies standards, the website I showed you last month is still there. Now they're taking testimonies for November meeting. That's going to happen in Sioux Falls. So, yeah. And then the last component there is called the Freshman Impact. There was actually a little flyer in your packet about Freshman Impact. So the reason why I bring that to your attention is if they do indeed ask the Parkston School District to host that event next fall, we may have to do some calendar tweaking on that too in order to host everybody. I think we could do it while school is in session, but I'm not 100% sure if that's something that can be done. But it's a great program. It teaches kids about decision making. It's anything from drinking under the influence, it's texting, it's just a lot of really good decision making processes, and I've taken kids to that program a couple years ago, and they can make an impact. That's why it's called Freshman Impact. And then our school safety plan, we had, I met with all of the kids, pre-K through 5 last week, and then 6 through 12. We talked about our school safety plan like we talked about last spring, and then over the summer we revisited that and told the kids what the plan is. We went through greater portions of that plan. Tomorrow, because of the nice weather, we're actually going to walk to our rally points. We're going to expose our kids for the first time. And those 2 rallying points are over here underneath the baseball grandstands and the gun club for our pre-K through 5. And our 6 through 12 will be a rally point for Mr. Josie's place in his shed that he has sitting on his property. We're going to see if we can get everybody in there. So they may tweak, but we're going to have those. And then from that point, the next step would be is now they know where they're going. Now we're going to try to get there at some point in time with, how fast can we do that? So we'll expose the little kids to that and give them the confidence in order to know where they're going, and we'll see how that works. Okay. Yeah, and I think that's all I have for you guys. So.
Any questions?
One question.
Yes, sir.
On the roof, the rest of the roof, is there anything we need to talk about there? Or
I haven't not back heard from them, so that's a great point. I know I put in my notes that we contract with them. I don't know what it is, probably an $800 a year deal, where they come in and inspect all our ones. So the young gentleman that came, very thorough, I couldn't believe. He showed up early one morning, and school got out, and this guy come walking in, I'm like, you're still here? I mean, it was like a 9-hour day for this guy. I'm like, what are you doing up there? He said, well, it's thorough. He said, but you got a few issues there. He said, I'll write it up in a report and send it to you, and they're supposed to be getting this information. I noticed a few things up there when I did go up on top and looked at the replacement membrane. I said, just see how well it was done. I went up with an ARS guy and we inspected it all, but we found a couple areas that have been past done. I think in '01, there's some dates written on up there, you can believe that. And one of the way they did some of this, the things that they did there, because he's like even scratching his head. So if we end up having some water issues, or we've had water issues, I can see why it's taken place, because it's something that it's hard to explain. You'd have to see it where the membrane, it actually goes into the brick. And that, when they replaced it, they did not do that. He said it's called, it's like oh geez, when water finds its own level, a seep component to it. And when it goes into the brick, because that brick will hold water inside the brick, and then it hits that membrane that comes out then, and it finds its way. Well, whoever did it, replaced it, they didn't do it that way. They took it out of it and then just left this whole other component, and then they did is just put the membrane back up against the brick. And he goes, it's not best practice. So little things like that. So we'll see where he goes with him on that. I don't know. I have not seen the report as of yet. So.
Anything else? All right, we'll move to discussion items. Letter A is review policy manual. The following ASBSD policies are being presented for review in a first reading. AC, ACAA, ACAA-R1, ACAB, and ACB.
So those are all first reading policies that you see there that we talked about in the process going last time. So you got non-discrimination in your federal programs, you know, and that's I would recommend that we stick with that. That's something that you should have abiding. And the next one, just real quick here, is I think sexual harassment, if I remember right. Yep. Did I get that right? Yeah. Yep. And then you have an exhibit that goes with sexual harassment. One is actually policy, the other one is actually procedure. And certainly we want to have that embedded within your policy manual. And then from that one, you go to ACA, that's the support one, is the process. And they are lengthy. That sexual harassment policy is lengthy. And I will let you know that you adopted that a couple years ago. And I can assure you just about every school district adopted the same thing, just from protection perspective. ACAB, I looked at that, I read through that, I went through past my own experience. I do not ever remember seeing this policy. Well, as I read through it, I can kind of see the necessity of it, but prohibition against aiding and abetting sexual abuse. Like, what is that? So essentially, we have an obligation, I have an obligation, administrators have an obligation. If somebody leaves our system, to, I guess, essentially tell the truth, make sure that they don't work in education again, which I don't know how that's even possible. I don't ever remember seeing this policy. So if this is something that we're not sure about, we're uncomfortable with, I have no problem with it being in your policy manual. It was just something that I was unfamiliar with. So I wanted to at least bring that to your attention. And then ACB, that's non-discrimination on the basis of handicap, disability. That's something that's pretty standard that you should have in your manual. So that's kind of the first reading of those policies as we move forward. And just so we're clear on the process, you'll always see an A and a B under the discussion item. First A is going to be the first reading, and B is always going to be the second reading of what it was a month prior. Does that make sense? So we'll get into your B here. Again, I didn't include those policies only because we talked about them last month. We didn't make any changes to them. So.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions?
That makes sense.
About A?
Okay.
Okay, B, the following ASBSB policies are being we don't have those in there, but we reviewed them last time.
Yeah, we did.
Section A, AA, ABA, AB, AA, AB, AA, R1, and AB, AB, ABAC.
Yep.
So then next time there'll be three of them. There'll be an A, B, and C, because there'll be the C will be the third reading, or what?
Craig, help me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Third reading and
Then we'll
Then
adopt
we
it.
adopt.
final reading and adoption. Yep.
Final reading.
Will be the next one for
Okay.
those ones there.
So ongoing, we'll see A, B, C, a lot.
A, B, and C. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Any questions about B? All right, C, district state testing results presentation. The school board will listen to a presentation on the 21-22 school year, South Dakota State
That was
assessment
on.
results for students in grades 3 through 8 and 11.
It's on now.
Okay, so today, Mr. Knipling talked about, we had a data, or an early out in service, and we went through our data. So one thing I'm gonna cautious, it's not publicly released until the 13th, okay? But we do have the ability to share it, and it's okay with that. But I wanted to show you a few things. Mr. Kinberg helped me, and why that's not, because it was on. I had it on. It was projecting. I don't see my blue fuzzies or the blue triangle. I don't know why I shut off. Come on. Maybe we won't. Want me to unplug it here?
Yeah. Let's do look at a light here.
When I came in and turned it on, I plugged it in. I had it up there, so I know it worked. He didn't die, did he?
See the backlight coming on.
There it comes.
Code for in bed.
It's usually a little bit sharp tail shows up.
We're getting a light flashing here too.
I'm guessing that's not a good thing, Mr.
That's not a
Kinberg?
good thing. no.
It's not. Jeez. Well,
Want me to get a projector quick?
no, well, we can table it because I can bring it back in November. But I just wanted to show you some highlights and what we showed the staff today, and look at our overall school performance index numbers for all of our schools. I guess the highlight and the summation of that is, I challenged the staff today to, how do you use data points to drive what you teach, okay? And then the other component of that is, while our scores, I think they're on a little bit on a roller coaster. They have been when I look at your data from year to year, where a high school may be here one year, total SPI, then next year they're down, then the next year they're back up. That's pretty consistent with your elementary and what do we call your junior high, which now is going to transition into a middle school. So what you want there is a trajectory that is more of this, planing up rather than riding a roller coaster. So I think if we're intentional about our data and we use data to drive our teaching in the classrooms, and then overall as schools, and then how it will play into a district, I think over time, I think we can change that trajectory. We can get off that roller coaster with whether it's best practices, instructional strategies, and again, like I said, data driving what we do and what we teach. So there's certainly room for growth. There are levels of proficiency in advanced, which is kids who score levels 3 and 4 on our state assessment. Has a tendency to fluctuate. It varies from year to year. I was going to do, oh, there it is.
Just never wait.
For an example, I wanted to show you, so look at the class of 2025 up here in the left-hand corner. So that would be this year's sophomores, okay? So when they took the test in as third graders, you can see level 3s, 4, 3s, 2s, and 1s. 3s and 4s are proficient in advanced. Okay, 2 is basic, level 1 is below basic. So that's the percent that scored that, okay? The first column that you see there is the number tested, and then the percentage of kids who were a level 4. So just follow that level 4 from year to year, okay? In this group of kids, it's relatively the same group of kids, 35, 35, 36, 38, so a little fluctuation here. But when they were as third graders, 46% of them had a level 4. When they were fourth graders, 34% of them scored a level 4. When they were fifth graders, 28% of them scored a level 4. When there are 6th graders, 32% of them scored. Okay, and then we got into COVID, and then as 8th graders, whoa, 11% of them. This is pretty standard. What you see there is that dip in all of those certain grade graduating class levels. Okay, and you can follow this document. If you want me to send it to you, want to take a closer look at it, I'd be more than happy to share that with you. Okay, questions on that document?
How come some of them have a 2021 and some of them don't? Like the blue doesn't have a 2021.
Yeah, so this group of kids here, group of 24, so they were 4th graders, 5th graders, 6th graders, 7th graders, 9th and 10th grade, there is no state assessment. Okay. These kids won't get tested again until 22, 23, that's this year. They will be your 11th graders that you're going to end up assessing this year. Okay?
So the grades are seniors.
Yep. So that's a great question. You can see the last, graduating class down here if I moved it down for you. That was last year's group of kids. Okay, and then the year even before that. So 21, 22, okay. Graduating class of 23, that's now your seniors. How did they score? Well, look at their percentages. If you look at level 4, as they were 5th graders in 15, 16, 38% of them scored a level 4. Last year's juniors, 11. Okay, so is there work to be done? Absolutely. This is something else where I can show you what our score performance index is out in this last column out here. If you look at your elementary 3 through 6 overall by year, you can see the trend here, 76, 73, 1920, there's no tests because of COVID. 2021, we did not get a score because we were still trying to catch up. We didn't have the opportunity to have back-to-back years worth of data. So there was no SPI total. Now this year, because we did have that, 68 was our total score, and that's a score out of 100. Okay, and I'll show you what is comprised of how we get an SPI total. So you can see 7th and 8th grade there. You can look at our colony schools and where they're at, and then you can look at our high school and where they're at. Now, I cautioned our group today. Look, was 82, geez, they did really well in their SPI. Well, go way back over to the left and look at their math and their English proficiency levels, 56 and 61. And there again, you can kind of see the roller coaster that these kids are in any one particular category. 40, 38, 45, 56, that's as juniors. 72, 72, 70, 61, that's on a downward trajectory. And you can apply that across the board. For those particular groups, okay? The other thing I want to show you is this is our concept called STARS. So how do we make up this SPI score over here? Well, their student performance is always a part of it, and that's the test in of itself. Then there's progress. The only, schools that have progress are elementary schools, okay? It's not a component that we can do for not only elementary, but our junior high as well. We can't do that for high school because they go from 8th grade year, take 2 years off, and then they go to 11th grade year. It's hard to do that comparison. High school then, to get their SPI, you can see that college and career readiness. You can see their high school completion will have a direct impact on their SPI score, okay? So if I opened up any one of these, which I'm not, I'd be able to show you, drill down into deeper data on that. But point being is this, and I could show you if you want to look as a district. I'll pull that up real quick. Oh, sure. I was having this issues today working with the teachers too. A couple of these, for whatever reason, it didn't come up. So hopefully it. This will be the last one I show you here. So,
What does school environment mean?
so that in the smaller grades or your elementary kids' school environment is your attendance percentages, and then certain percentages will give you a certain amount of points. That is not taken into consideration for your high school. Okay, that's where your college and career readiness comes in, so they don't track that. Okay. So overall, Parkston School District, if I want to go to let's see here. Let's just pick elementary per se. Then I'll change the metric up here. Okay. So if I want to go Parkston, I want to go all schools. I want to go view. So as a district, 51% of our students are proficient in advanced and 49% of our students in math are proficient in advanced. And we do not have any science data again because in the midst of COVID, we changed assessments. Last year was the very first year we actually took the new science assessment. So we don't have any data. I shouldn't say we don't have data yet, that's coming in January. Okay? So progress is a whole different beast. I could talk forever on this, guys. I had a 2-hour in-service today and I could do this for hours, you know, but we don't have enough time. So as a district, you have an attendance rate of 93%, you have a high school completion rate of 91, and 75% of our kids are college and career ready. And that is based on the number of courses, the types of courses they're taking in their high school program.
So these percentages are compared to other schools in the state of South Dakota?
They are. You know, it's not back in the day where Governor Jankel used to make these front page news and rank us all. They've gotten better about that, but I mean, at some point in time, I could go to the Department of Ed website and I could find the Excel spreadsheet and I could literally drill down and tell you where Parkston Elementary, Parkston Junior High, and Parkston High School are in comparison to 1 through 200, whatever it is. So, yep. I don't get too caught up in that because, you know, it's about us. What can we do to better ourselves? You know, not get in the comparative game. And like I said, that's really taken a back seat since, you know, it's been a long time since they ranked us, so to speak.
So the first percentages were students that were proficient in advanced, is what you said?
Yep. Those are people that scored, those are students who scored levels 3 and 4 overall in the entire district. And the sheet that I showed you that was colored, it was by grade. Mm-hmm. Yep. So, and what I showed you was tracking the kid by grade, you know, with grades by grade. So, like I said, I could spend hours on this, guys, and it would, you know, we could really get into it. But bottom line is, the moral of the story is while things are, we do well, there's a lot of things we could do better. And that's where systemically we're having the conversations about school improvement. So, yep. Okay. Any questions on that? What did you do, Mr. Kindenberg, to get it?
Just let it
do its thing.
let it shut off for a while and then it.
Is that all you have on that topic?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Any other questions? Okay, we'll move to D. As a building committee update, the school board will be presented with an update on the proposed multi-use facility addition, public meeting and community feedback.
A week ago, we had a public meeting, and I think we had 20 people in attendance. Did I count that right? Or was I? We didn't have a sign-in sheet, of course we didn't.
No, we didn't. There's probably a few more than that.
I counted 32.
32, okay.
Good
Thanks,
thing you were
Tony.
there.
Thanks, Tony, I appreciate that. But, you know, I put in your packet the actual PowerPoint that we went through, and it was a little bit different. Craig and I did some tweaking on that based on what we had saw prior to that as a school board that we took you guys through. So if you haven't had a chance to look at the packet, I would encourage you to do that. But the feedback that we got, I did include those, I think, 5 particular documents that were returned to us. Stuck around, had some good conversations with some people that were in attendance. I know a few of you were there, and I appreciate your support for that. So I'll, you know, at this point in time, that's the update I got. I mean, process-wise, we haven't reached out and we haven't went back to Arc Inc. or Pitts Construction. So I'll just kind of, maybe Matt or John, you know, or Scott or whoever, I mean, if you got comments to say about what you heard at the meeting or people you've talked to out in the public, feel free. So, I don't know what to tell you. I thought it went well. So that's just me. I'm probably a little biased. Craig, if you got anything to add, 2 cents to that process.
Everybody I talked to, I mean, nobody has negative.
I had a couple people reach out to me, and nothing negative, just wondering if we could thin down some of the addition, you know, just maybe the thin brick, some of the windows,
Yeah.
you know, and that everybody's on the same page that I talked to about, hey, let's do it right. But I mean, when you start talking about the value of that thin brick as opposed to the value of just a precast panel.
Sure.
I mean, being good stewards of the taxpayer dollar, I think we need to make sure that we are buying value.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, that's just, that was one point. Like I said, 3 or 4 people reach out to me with that. Once again, they're definitely on board that we and see the need of it, as does everybody. But just some of them things are what I keep
Yeah, that makes sense.
brought down a little bit.
Yep.
The cosmetic side.
Yes. And once again, it's not, you know, and you know, they want it done right. Without a doubt, everybody does. But just bang for buck as far as bringing down some of that additional cost. Wonder if that could be a possibility.
Yep.
I had one person reach out to me too, same concept, but yet he also said, you know, if we're gonna do it, again, do it right, but he said if we're gonna borrow money and my taxes are gonna go up, I want it to look right, look nice, and be something the community can be proud of, and not taxes go up, borrow money, and we have just basic.
And most of the people I talked to also, they said, hey, if we could take the chance of that dollar levy off the table by maybe thinning some stuff down a little bit, that would be huge. I mean, because we're looking at what, a 60 cents per thousand levy?
Yeah, what we talked about, proposed, was at this point in time to generate, you know, the needed 1.25, you know, in our capital outlay is about 60 cents. So one of the things we talked about, probably wasn't in your packet, but at those who were in attendance, you know, Craig and I are taking a hard look at our special ed fund. And because both of those funds are dollar per dollar in that, and how you generate those monies, that, you know, is it possible for us to walk back on our SPED levy, you know, to a certain degree or a certain cent level, you know, to, I know it's moving the chairs at Titanic round to Peter Ray Paul. If it's 60 in the capital outlay, you knock 10 off your deal, so now you're really about 50. You know, because it's going to have the same effect based on dollar per dollar. So, yeah, I mean, I think Craig and I talked. There's a belief that I think if we want to continue forward with this, I know there's a couple items in your action portion of your agenda to kind of say yay or nay with that whole concept, but I think there's work to be done yet from a design phase, things that you already referenced, Jed, and things that I know with us as the committee that we've sat with, those Pitts Construction and Arc Inc., that they have some ideas too, as to maybe, you know, still keep the quality of what we want, the usefulness of it, every component of it, but where could we have some dollar savings on that too, and not lose the aesthetic component to it as well. Again, if we're gonna do it right, and so it looks something you can be proud of as well. So,
without doubt.
Yep, and I think they have some ideas for us as well, if I remember right, that they can certainly take a look at. So, are they huge cost savings? I don't know that. We really never had those conversations about total numbers and what some of those things could save us. So,
And the other thing, when you're talking the cents, it all depends on the valuation. You know, because look at the valuation. Last year was 541 million. This year was 509. Next year's anticipated 566.
Yep.
And the driving force is the productivity model of the agricultural property. Yep. So, I mean, we need that 1.25 in order to do it.
Yep.
So whatever, I mean, that would keep us status quo with kind of where we're at currently, and being able to keep up with the roofs and other things that we would want to do going forward as well. With playgrounds and different other things that he talked about last
in your
month,
5-year capital,
in the 5-year capital outlay plan. Yes.
So the ask, based on your assessed valuation, on that component, because it fluctuates from year to year because of the productivity model. Obviously, that's first and foremost on, I think, Craig and our part, or my part, to make sure that in order to generate that dollars, if we only need this much, 40 cents out of the capital outlay or 30 cents out of the capital outlay because your assessed valuation up, we're certainly going to propose to you guys, listen, we don't need that much anymore. So,
And that's what's happened the last couple of years,
Yeah,
because
we'll
you
walk
ask
that
for a
back.
dollar amount, you don't ask for a levy.
Exactly.
yeah.
And that's gonna fluctuate, as went from anywhere from 1.67 to 1.53 in the last 3 years, because of those fluctuations in the taxable valuation.
So I think that's our responsibility to come to you as school board members and propose to you when it comes time to do your ask for your asks, which we just did last month,
Yep.
Craig, right?
Mhm.
We're gonna ask for this amount. That amount will get us the levy on that equivalent is this, and that'll do what we can do, hold the taxpayers as harmless as possible. But right now, if things status quo based on a $509 million assessed valuation, the 60 cents would get you the dollars that you need. But it's always going to be a moving target. So,
I was just curious if, at any point, have you pulled any of the staff within the facility, like of things that they're needing or how they could see the space being used, because they're working here every day, so maybe they have ideas or thoughts?
we talked to the staff about the building. I've shown it to them in more than one environment. They've seen it. I've shared it with them. So, I mean, if anybody had any comments or words of advice or things of that nature, and we had a little conversation with the high school end because of where the high school offices was going to be. I mean, we had some of those conversations and probably a little bit of give and take on some of that from a couple of those teachers down there. So, but yeah, I mean, we've encouraged them to reach out. I mean, based on what they've seen, if they have any feedback for us, same what we've done with the at the public meeting. So, next steps forward, I guess, guys, depending on what you want to do here, and it doesn't have to be here, it can be down in your action items, but I do remember having the conversation last time we met with Arc Inc. and Pitts Construction, is they said, at any point in time, when you get this public meeting done, whatever the board feels is the next step, just contact us and we'll be ready to roll. So we could have another joint meeting, or you can table it for another month and still think about it, or you can say, what, I think what I hear from most everybody is that there's a lot of it in favor of moving forward with the process, but it's not anything set in stone. My point was going to be this. I'll use Mitchell for an example. They go through this whole process. They let bids. All the way to the design process, they let bids. They miss it by 20 million. Okay, now they're back to the drawing table on that. A little bit different on their part because they bonded, I think, for that, where we're selling capital outlay certificates for that. And if we get to that point and we go through a bid process, maybe in January, you let it out in February, you open the bids and you're like, oh, we all have like sticker shock or some other component of that, like, oh, this isn't going to work. It's no longer we're within our financial wheelhouse. So we can always go through that process again and revamp and, take a hard look at what the bottom line is. So,
seeing that, this is probably a discussion for later down the line, but that's what's kind of got me a little more worried than anything is if we go ahead and sell those certificates and then we don't go through with it, and then we're stuck for 8 years, right? I mean, is that
10.
Before we can
Before they become
refinance or pay it
callable.
off?
Mhm.
10 years.
you have
You have 3 years to spend them.
3 years to spend them, yeah.
So you have 3 years to do the project.
And then if you don't use it,
Yeah, 10 years, right?
so I mean, you're gonna pay it off in 10 years no matter what, if you use it or not. And you can't pay it off earlier. That's the only thing that's got me, really concerned about that whole process. I don't.
Well, let's rephrase that again. Let's make sure we're clear. You would not, I suspect, Craig, help me. You would not pay them off in 10 years, because when you sell them, if you do sell them, you're selling them on a 20-year note. You could,
He's
But-
saying if you don't use them.
If you don't use the money,
Yeah.
they're gonna give you the money in one foul swoop in your account, wherever you wanna put it.
Yes,
We can invest it, but not for what we're gonna be paying in interest.
right.
So if we got all this money out there and for whatever reason we don't use any of it or we don't use half of it,
Right.
and then we got this, laying out there and, maybe it won't happen, but you never know what's gonna happen, I guess.
Right.
Jim was fairly confident, in his numbers, obviously they're gonna fluctuate some, but he was fairly confident in the
Yeah.
numbers that he presented us, so.
I just mean like, if we do have a Mitchell situation where we sell the certificates for 7.3 or whatever, and, I assume we wanna do that sooner rather than later, interest rate wise. And then we're down the road into January, February, letting the bids out, and it comes back at 10 million.
Yeah. And there's no crystal ball for that, right?
Right, exactly. And 99% probably not gonna happen, but
Yeah.
that's just the one concern I've got there. Like I said, that's probably farther down.
And I
the
think
list.
it's legitimate, but I.
And that's the only process that the school has to generate funds like that is the selling of the certificates, correct? Besides the bond issue.
Exactly.
So we really don't have any other option.
Not for that dollar amount.
And if you sell them, you want to sell them as soon as you can because you can get the best interest rate, or can you wait to sell them till later? So that once the bids are in and you know for sure, or can you not, do you not do it that way?
Oh, I suspect, yeah, I think you can. I think you can go through this whole process and end up selling them, after the fact. There again, you're playing a little bit of Russian roulette because you're not sure what the market's doing, and you got a 50-50 shot. You could come out
Both ways,
better
probably.
better
Yeah.
on the tail end for waiting, or
Mhm.
you could come out exponentially worse too if you waited for the process as well. So, if there's specific questions you have, Mr. Spethman, who works for DA Davidson,
Just texted him to see.
yep, he said, I'll be on speed dial. He said, you guys want questions, because he lives in Omaha, and that's where the office is. He said, by all means, call me. He said, and I'll try to clarify anything that you have, from concern or questions that you do have with respect to the selling of certificates.
Because yes, Jill, that's what I would assume process would be. Normally would be to go through your bidding and then sell your certificates, but if we're in this environment of
Not
rising
knowing.
interest rates,
Volatility, yeah.
that's just, I think, months ago we were kind of probably in a better spot to be in a hurry to sell them. Maybe now, I don't know if it's as much of a hurry or not, but I don't know.
It's a great perspective on things. And like I said, I don't have the right formula or the playbook to tell you,
He said we can call him if you want to.
to tell him.
What are the next steps then? They want to have a meeting with us to discuss where we're at, or?
The ball's in our court.
Right, so
We
like
have to
what do
tell
we have,
him.
we just need to say we want to meet with you again? What is the meeting about?
Further look at the footprint,
Okay,
what has been
Fine tuning the
developed,
footprint.
fine
Not
tuning
with,
it.
not with the
Not with the bonds.
certificates, with the
yeah,
architect.
yeah,
and
yeah,
so-
yeah.
so.
I'm just trying to decide what we need to do next, like if we need, do we need to have another meeting, or like just so we can make a decision and
I think
reach
they're
out?
probably two separate things.
Yeah.
Deciding on the building or
Do you have his
whatever we
number,
want to
Pat?
do.
Up here, His cell number, correct?
Yeah. $402.
660
Yep, that's the one.
4461.
Yep.
This is Jerry.
Hi, Mr. Spethman. Hey, Pat Mickinen, Parkston School District.
Hello, Pat. How are you today?
Good, good. Say, I got you on speakerphone on my cell phone, and we have our board members here and a couple
Yeah.
other patrons and stuff. The question at hand here is the timeline, potentially advantages, disadvantages, and the selling of the certificates. So Is there a notion here to continue to go through the process, go through a bid process, get your bids, open up your bids, okay, this is what the total cost, and then sell your certificates? How does that process usually work? Or you always sell certificates first, and then you do your bid opening? Any insight on that?
Well, certainly, and basically it comes down to, what do you think the actual need is? And we've been talking about a project that did the $7 million range, which is basically the max that the school district issue. So the thinking is, if you had a much larger capacity to go ahead and issue, you'd probably want to wait and see, what the bids are once they come back, because you wouldn't want to over issue, correct?
Okay.
So basically, since you've got this, you're kind of limited on how much you can do on your 1.5%. That's not subject to referendum. You could go ahead and just and issue the certificates and move forward and do that. You've got 3 years to spend the proceeds. Okay, so that allows you to go ahead and issue, and then have your bids, and then go ahead and start your construction. In the spring, if that's the schedule that you're looking at.
Sure.
And if you do issue, say, let's say 7 million, just to pick a number, and then the bids come back at, 6.5 million, if you've got other, uses for the funds within, your capital outlay needs, you can utilize it for that. Or you could go ahead and just, use those additional proceeds to make, your first couple of interest payments on the outstanding certificates that you have.
Sure.
So the idea would be that you would go ahead and issue the certificates and lock in a rate, because you're kind of top-ended out with regard to the max that you could issue, and have it not be subject to referendum.
Okay. So the premise is selling the dollar amount based on pretty close to what the project potentially is, kind of, going down that road of what it potentially would cost, and therefore selling them at the time that we're selling them. Let's flip the model here a little bit. Let's say we don't sell, or we do sell them, and let's say it comes in at 10 million. We're all sitting here horrified and want to crawl underneath our chairs and, do whatever. And
Sure.
we sold these things. We're sitting on, $7.5 million worth of certificates, and we pull the plug on the whole thing. How does that whole process work?
Well, basically you have a call redemption, so you would make payments on those funds for that duration. So you would be required to make those payments up until the call date, and then you had the opportunity at that point to potentially pay them off or refinance them.
Sure.
Now, if that is an issue. That is an issue, obviously. If you're thinking that your pricing could potentially be that high.
Yeah.
If you're very firm with the architects and if you're going to have a construction manager at risk and say this is what we can afford to spend, you could get a plan A and a plan B.
Yep.
And go through that with those folks, and let them know that that this is if we do this, we've issued the certificates, it comes back at that number. What do we have to cut in order to get what we can get, rather than what's everything on our wish list.
Sure. And everything you just described is, I would say, essentially step for step in what we're doing, with those with our architecture and our construction manager, and coming up with numbers that we believe are realistic, and backing our way into the $7 million number thereabout. So we just wanted to know, what was the process in case disaster struck for whatever reason. You sold them, you're sitting there, and you had the proceeds, and then you did nothing with it, and making sure that they get paid off,
Right, exactly. And to the extent that you've got the money available, you could scale back the project to the extent that you could, and get what what, the very basic amount that you need,
Sure.
for what those improvements would be.
Right.
Jerry,
Yeah.
one other thing, question.
Yeah.
So the process, like the time frame of it, like the concern is, the Mitchell deal came in, they thought it was gonna be 40 million and it came in at 60.
Yep.
What is would it be okay to go through do the resolution tonight not to exceed the dollar amount? When is the issue, is that start the issuance part and the selling of it, or could you wait to sell until after the bid opening came about?
You could certainly wait until after the bid opening came about.
You just take the chance of the interest rates being even higher.
Right, exactly.
Even if even if they did the resolution tonight to approve that to get going forward, doesn't mean that you're selling the certificates yet.
That's correct. No, it just authorizes the issuance. And we basically can get everything teed up with the exception of the rating, depending on how you want to go forward. We could get the official statement ready to go, which is a document we use to sell the certificates. But if the board wants to wait until after the bid opening occurs to make sure that there isn't that large discrepancy between what you've authorized under the resolution and what the actual pricing is, that's fine too. But adopting the resolution tonight doesn't cost the district anything, and it allows for us to move forward with just a phone call because this portion's already been taken care of.
Gotcha. Does that make sense?
So you have the flexibility. Yeah, you didn't. By adopting the resolution, you're not required to go ahead and move forward.
And then we wouldn't get stuck making those payments for 10 years because they're 10-year callables if you do the 20-year.
Right. But yeah, I mean, the call provisions are fairly consistent. It could very well be in a month that, the market could change and it could be an 8-year call for the 20-year, rather than a 10. It's just kind of subject to what the buyers are doing at that moment and what the market will bear from the standpoint of getting you the best execution on the interest rate.
And those certificates, do they all have to be sold at one time, or could we do multiple different sales of those certificates?
No, you can do them in more than one series.
Okay.
You can do them more than you could do 4 million and then do another 3 million.
Okay.
And then at that point, obviously, you blend the rates.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, your rates aren't gonna hold the same, but you're gonna find the middle ground.
Right.
Yep. So timeline, let's say, we pass the resolution tonight, and let's say we come back to you and say, you know what, we want to sell them.
Yep.
You told me that best case scenario, where we're at right now, that probably wouldn't even get done till December, I think you told me? I mean,
that's right, Pat, and the reason being is that the rating agencies are they want 15 business days to issue a rating, which is 3 weeks. So we would go out, we would put together the official statement. That takes a couple of weeks. So that's right there is 5 weeks to get the official statement ready and then to get the rating. And of course, 5 weeks out from now is Thanksgiving, and so or thereabouts. So and you don't sell anything the week of Thanksgiving because all the buyers are with their families for Thanksgiving. So you would start to market it, the following week into the first week of December, which I think is December 1st and 2nd, Thursday and Friday. So we would be looking at actually pricing them the second week of December.
Sure.
So we do our pre-marketing and then price them, and then you close it at the end of the month.
And the interest rate would go in.
And the interest rate gets set on the date after we price them, when the school district enters into the certificate purchase agreement with us. So our desk, when they price it, they have a pre-marketing period that's about a week. Then they have a preliminary pricing day, and then the day following that is an order period. And that order period is when the rates are set. That's what the buyers agree to when our desk negotiates that with them. And then the next day you sign the certificate purchase agreement that locks in your rate. And then we close it approximately 2 weeks later. and that's when you get your money.
But once you sign that 2-week closing date, you're locked into that. I mean, nothing can happen in that 2 week before you sign then.
Right, the last time we didn't close anything in the 2 weeks after the pricing was 9/11.
Sure.
You know, so it's got to be something that's very, very significant in the marketplace, like a 9/11, or there's some type of legislation introduced in Congress at the national level that, you know, makes the certificates not marketable because they're taking away the tax exemption or something. So it's very, very, the risk is very, very low.
Sure.
It can happen, but, you know, I've closed, I don't know, 175 financings, you know, over the last 6-7 years. Never had a problem, right?
Yep.
So, you know, it's very straightforward after that. Meyer Henry puts together all the closing documents. They get sent to the school district, to Craig. Craig signs them along with the board president, whoever else needs to sign them, get them back to Meyer Henry. I send out a closing memorandum, a draft closing memorandum for comment, and then a final one, and then we close, and you get your money at that point.
Sure.
Yep.
Perfect. What other
Good.
questions? Anybody, board members, everybody?
You answered my questions.
Yeah, okay. So John's good. Matt, get your question answered? Yep, pretty much. Good. Jill? Scott? Okay, well, I certainly appreciate your time, Mr. Spethman. Appreciate it.
You bet. It's my pleasure, and thanks for the call, and enjoy, and have a good rest of the meeting.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Bye.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Okay. Okay.
So,
We want to sit and stare at each other now? So I think your time frame, feel comfortable more in that time frame. The fact that we issue the resolution tonight, if you move forward with that, you don't have to go through the process that he just explained until
You can
you
do
actually
that,
went
but-
through the bid opening.
If you wanted to.
Yeah. And I don't know that you're at a huge disadvantage that from a market perspective, just because of where things are at right now.
Yeah.
When I talked to him, he said, I mean, it's volatile, it's gonna stay volatile. The Fed meets November 2nd again. He expects that to go up, if not, I mean, he's heard all the way up to another point, you know, and to try to slow this freight train down a little bit from inflation perspective, so. But that's not necessarily, it does have an impact on the rates. He said, but as of right now, things are actually going backwards a little bit on the rates that they are getting issued right now. So, you know, U.S. Treasuries are a pretty safe bet, you know, in that whole concept. So, and waiting a couple months through that process, it's not that you're going to be at a huge disadvantage. I don't think that you're going to cost yourself a ton of money, you know, in that. But, you know, you did back in April when we first got them. I mean, it's, Craig, what would it?
3%.
That was 3%. 3%
Straight down.
Yeah.
And now it was 5 and down to 4.12 for part of them, and back up to 5 or something like that.
Yeah.
Wasn't different. Every 6 years
So,
or so.
anyway, think about that. Unless there's nothing more on the committee part of it, you know, we can move forward with that. And then you have action items C and D down there that eventually, you know, would make the step forward in some of that information. Unless there's comments more about the building committee concept, you know, I think a lot of that will be decided, you know, if you guys make a motion down here to sell them, then that tells me you want to meet with them again, you want to move forward. So,
Yeah,
you want to call that question now, and just,
No, I'm similar with pretty much everybody else. I mean, people I've talked to, obviously everybody's concerned about the price and everything, but really no absolute no's on the project, I guess. Some concerns that we need to consider some other aspects of the school, which I don't disagree with, but I think it's probably a different topic other than this. But so yeah, as far as I'm concerned, I have no real concerns, I guess, right now.
okay. Anything else?
Yeah, I talked to larger owners of land because they'll probably be, and certainly a couple people of larger businesses, because the more holdings you have, the more money it's gonna. And I didn't sense any major, I mean, they realize the cost, but it's based off of their large holdings. But I didn't get any major pushback at this point in time, where it was an absolute no.
Yeah.
I mean, they're concerned certainly with the shorter crop this year, but to get the longer term situation for whether it's their grandkids or whether they're kids, or so I think be a good asset for the school. So I didn't sense any real. It's always been my concern not having a bond issue from the standpoint of not having the people vote on it, because then I know it's an up and down vote, and so this process is us making that decision, which is a little different. The other way, I know want to vote, just like voting us on the board here, you know. So.
The only feedback I got was just about the facility itself, what it's used for. So it was not about building it or not building it. Everybody that I spoke to was for it. They just wished that, you know, if the school needs something, that it isn't always sports focused, which is kind of what it felt like to some. That was the feedback I got, that it should be more classroom consideration or more storage consideration, which there is some there, and some other things, but that was the feedback that I got. It was more about what it looks like inside of it, what we use it for. So anyway, that's later. Okay, we'll move to E. Consider county health nurse request. The school board will revisit and consider a request to implement a curriculum at the middle school level designed to help students make good choices about risky health behaviors.
You asked me to take that back to the staff. I did that with that curriculum that we presented in September. What I put in front of you is a synopsis or summation, sorry, from Mrs. Kufka when I went and talked with her about that, because a greater portion of that content is taught in her particular curriculum. So if you want to take a couple minutes, because I didn't get that in the packet, I just got this today, you can kind of see as to what she's been teaching. She did visit with the county health nurse. They did have conversations, and the county health nurse shared that, you know, as long as you're doing these things, you know, they don't have, you know, reservations and the necessity for them to come in and teach that program that brought to your attention last month, you know, that they certainly felt comfortable. And you know, I think it kind of meets the needs. They felt it meets the needs of our students. I think the one concept there you see, we were targeting 8th grades, and that's who the county health nurse program was going to target, was 8th grades. Well, right now we currently do not target 8th grade courses, but I think there is even a notion you can see on there that having the concept of taking a hard look at 8th grade, moving some of that information down in scope and sequence to the 8th grade level. So, but Mrs. Kufka's recommendation is, you know, she feels comfortable doing what she's doing in her course. She talked to county health nurse, they feel comfortable. So I brought it back, I went and talked to them. I don't know that there's a necessity for us to move forward with the county health nurse, you know, in the program that they had brought to your attention, you know, a month ago. So that's where it's at. Certainly can, but I think we're okay. If that's okay with you guys, so.
All right, we will move to F. ASBSD Delegate Assembly. The school board will discuss and review the delegate assembly agenda and legislative platform positions.
So that comes up, and I had the date wrong in my notes, but it's November 18th, sorry, not November 19th. And Jill, you were the delegate on that, and Mr. Schoenfeld, you were actually the alternate on that. So if you read through any of those components, we did this last year, we went through the resolutions, certainly that would take a month of Sundays to go through every component of that. If there was anything specific on there that they're proposing, or this is the resolutions as they propose, they go to this assembly, and then they kind of rewrite, and it sets that legislative platform that they want to kind of hold their hat on. So if nobody had anything specifically, like, hey, what is this, or concerns with the stricken language or the proposed language, I don't know that we spent an inordinate amount of time last year as a board on this, other than it's the delegate's job to go to that assembly if they can work it into their schedule and kind of cast a yay or a nay vote for the Parkston School District when they're adopting the platform components of it, so. If there's questions, I'll try to answer them, but it's pretty in-depth, document there. But and they talk about every component. One of the big ones I can see that they're going to have a conversation about is curriculum. So.
Any questions? All right, we'll move to G. Discuss South Dakota Fit resolution. The school board will revisit the resolution for membership to the South Dakota Fit program for the purpose investing school district reserve funds.
So as I put in my notes there, I'm going to defer to Craig on this. Last month you did have conversations about SD Fit. It was about taking the dollars that are in your reserve funds, kind of in your savings account, and opportunities to invest them. The question was called, I think Mr. Crowley did a good job of, is it insured? Or is that money insured? And Craig did some investigating on that and had some conversation, so I'll let him speak to that more than me. So.
Well, it wasn't FDIC insured. So just as it said on the website, it was not. Now, the bank is not either over $250,000, but we are insured because they pledge securities for the remainder of the amount. And I'm not saying the South Dakota Fit doesn't do that either, but the rates that were proposed from the bank is similar. So I don't know if there's a need right now for the South Dakota Fit program, mainly because of I don't know. I mean, we know it's safe up here because they're pledging it on the backside with securities that they purchased for those. So we are insured with the money that we have in there over the $250,000 at the bank here. So
I think if they made a good forward effort of trying to be close to competitive, I thank them and stay there.
Yeah.
So
my opinion.
And I think there's always a notion to keep our money local. You want to do that.
And remember, for the most part, in the past, the South Dakota Fit program hasn't been as high. The reason because of it is because of the nature of our economy right now.
Sure.
And the volatility and the movement and the quick movement, but the banks are catching up, so.
I mean, if it was 2 points, I mean, the guy has to at least ask the question.
Absolutely.
And say, okay, what am I, because the amount we're investing would be, I mean, it's not peanuts,
It's real money.
Yeah, right, so.
Well, and they have CD specials going on right now at the bank for just average everyday customers that were higher than the South Dakota Fit plus. So, I mean, I think that will be.
They were at least willing to have the conversation, answer the questions, and kind of go to the nth degree to, hey, we'll do everything we can to help you out, so.
Thanks for that call.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions? All right, we'll move to H, proposed November calendar change.
So my apologies on this. We have a calendar adopted, and I know it was there, but unbeknownst to me, and I'll take the heat for this, I did not see this, but the South Dakota High School Activities Association, due to some scheduling from USD, has moved the Thursday 9-man events, at least one of them, and the one of them just happens to be 9AA, off of Thursday's agenda. So they put 9AA on Friday morning at 10:30 a.m. instead of Thursday. Well, the whole point of doing our school calendar and the developmental days to give people the opportunity to attend that event or stay here and work. There's no sense of keeping it on the 10th, I'm sorry, because nobody's going to go watch 9B and 9A play. I mean, if somebody wanted to, they're going to have to, whether we're in it or not, it's Friday morning at 10:30. Now, I think we got good as a chance as anybody right now. I mean, we're in the mix, and it's not a long shot either, in my opinion. So we very well could have the opportunity if things go well for Coach Grave and his staff and the kids. So I'm asking about a month ahead of time. I know we're a little short of a month to let the note be known. And we talked to staff today, like, sorry guys, I mean, I don't know, Adam.
When did they make that change?
Well, it was late summer, early fall. It wasn't like
when they found out when USD schedule.
when USC schedule came out. It wasn't like it was last May already.
We didn't miss it in the spring. They changed it on us in the summer.
Well, you don't need to take responsibility for it.
Well,
You would think they would like blast that, like, hey, guess what? We changed this, just so you know.
Yeah. And they did do that, but I forgot about ours, how that affected our calendar.
Sure.
Until we started looking.
That
into it
makes
this
sense,
fall.
yeah. Okay, so what's your proposal?
Well, so I talked, because we used to have a Veterans Day program, which I'm passionate about too. So I visited with Charlie McKean today, and he's a big role in that, big player in that. And I explained the situation, and he felt confident, he'd have to do some checking, that maybe we could flip-flop our Veterans Day program, put it on the 10th rather than the 11th, have that developmental day on the 11th. And if we're in it, fine. If we're not, then, you know, we kind of just do status quo, what we were planning to do on the 10th. So that would be my proposal to you guys, is we flip-flop the 10th and the 11th on our calendar as far as the developmental day.
So making the 10th of November a school day and
Yes.
November 11th as a day with no school to students.
For students, but developmental for teachers. And those, they have the choice then of the 7 days that are like that, they have to work 4 of them. So,
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
and if we get it out now, I think we're still ahead of the curve here, so.
So we're gonna change it for sure, no matter what.
It's up to you guys.
I mean, I feel like we should just change it so that everybody knows what the plan is.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, okay, I didn't know if you, because you said like, if we, I just wanted
No,
to
no,
make sure
I-
that's what your intention was, for sure, okay. Yeah, okay, I need a motion to approve, to change the calendar.
Leishner? Moved by Leishner, second by Turner. Any other discussion?
Thank you.
Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign, motion carried.
As long as we all know it's USD's fault.
Oh, boy. Okay, action items. A, approve financial report. The school board will review the September financial report for discussion and approval.
So this is your orange document up front there, so most of you are getting on that habit. So I'll need to turn that over to Craig as to where your fund balances are right now and where we're at in the school year, so.
The biggest thing you're probably gonna see is the capital outlay fund, right? But that's because there was over $800,000 paid to Paulson Sheet Metalling for the HVAC project, which we'll turn around and reimburse this month from the state.
We're looking at that big negative number now for
I know.
years.
Yeah, and the reason why, I mean, 600 of it is invested in the savings account,
yeah.
but I mean, 200, so you'd add 800 and then taxes will be coming in the month after that. But we've made all our big, that's the problem with capital outlay, you make all the expenditures in August and September, July, August, September for the year, and then you don't spend any of it, but we haven't gotten any taxes yet either for this year, so. Yeah, it doesn't look good right now, but legitimately last month you approved a check for $699,000 to Boston Sheet Metal, plus there was another one for the month before, or right before that for 100 and some as well. And I got another one that you just approved for $32,000 for them there too. That's got to get reimbursed from. It's just a timing issue there. So otherwise, the general fund looks good. Was still, I mean, when you compare those to the last 5 years, it's right in the ballpark there.
So Craig, I have a question for you on
Mhm.
that. So timeline then, knowing that we're in an uptick now, we went from 514 to 500,
Oh,
potentially 42.
Mhm.
When do you start realizing that money in the state aid that you get? Is that come?
It wasn't in this month because it was still 202.
So maybe moving forward in November?
It might take them one more month. I don't know how long it takes them to get
Yeah, I
that
don't
change
know.
because we haven't had as big a drastic change.
What was your question for the new students? Is that what you were?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the state aid number, if you looked at the
Yeah.
state aid number, it was 202,538.
Yeah.
Well, that's based on what we anticipated. And what we anticipated was not much of a change.
Mhm.
So now they will adjust that for the next so many payments, including those new students in there.
Okay.
Because they gotta go pay you off of last year's until they get this count day
Okay.
situation. Now, will they do it on the end of October? Maybe, but remember, they still haven't replaced the Susan Woodmansey at the state office. It's still just Bobby. They got a new girl hired, but she's just training. I don't know.
Where they're at in that
Yeah.
process, yeah.
Would think they could still get it done, but I'm not guaranteeing November we would see it, if not December for sure. I mean October and November. Because we, the state aid comes in the last, like right at the last day or two, like October 29th-ish, October 30th, depending on how, on the weekends. But it's that week, right at the end of the month every time.
So you're gonna start realizing increased dollar amount from your state aid
Mhm.
because of your number of kids going
Yep.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, I was just curious what that timeline was, so, thank you.
If you look at the special education one, that's up from previous years, so that's where we're getting that idea of possibility of being able to, we're getting to a balance that we don't need to be growing to in there. But realizing that, hey, one incident can change that in a hurry. So, but right now we're sitting pretty good. Any questions on any of the other ones? School lunch, I got to maybe spending some too. So,
All right, any other questions? Okay, you need a motion to approve? I'll second it.
moved by Schoenfelder and seconded by Neville to approve the financial statements. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Same sign? Motion carried.
All right, we'll move to action item B, discuss Rodney Freeman school attorney request. The school board will consider a request for monetary support for his attendance to the National Education Law Seminar.
It's something you did last year. I guess it's a habit that you guys have been in. Rodney is one of your listed school attorneys that I turn to frequently. Phone calls, emails, things like that. We never really get a bill on that unless he goes deep into something. So this is kind of a support aspect for him to give us that counseling, what I essentially said, for free guidance, so to speak. So $150 contribution, I don't know, that is out of line. So
Second.
Moved by Crowell and seconded by Leishner to approve that request from Rodney Freeman in the amount of $150 for the school law conference. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, action item C, approve resolution to sell capital outlay certificates. The school board will discuss the resolution needed to approve the sale of capital outlay certificates for financing for the proposed building addition. So we kind of already discussed this, that we feel safe just approving this because it doesn't mean we're actually selling them.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay, all right, need a motion to approve?
And not to exceed the $7,575,000.
So,
Moved by Leishner,
second.
seconded by Turner to approve the resolution authorizing the execution terms, issuance, sale, and payment. And what I'm reading there is, guys, it's a 33-page resolution that was in your packet. I'm not reading the 33 pages, so I'm just reading the first little paragraph of it. Capitalized in aggregate, let's see, issuance, sale, and payment of limited tax capital outlay certificates in aggregate principal amount of not to exceed $7,575,000 of the Parks and School District of Davison, Douglas, Hanson, and Hutchinson counties, South Dakota, and the pledge of state aid to education to secure payment thereof. The resolution in full can be obtained in the business office, and there'll be more verbiage on the dates and times from Meyer Henry for that there. So any other discussion on that? So I need a roll call vote. Prohl,
Yes.
Schoenfelder,
Yes.
Leishner,
Yes.
Neville,
Yes.
Turner.
Yes.
Motion carried.
All right, we do not have an executive session tonight, so that,
Oh, with the engagement agreement.
We got D on there.
oh shoot, I just totally skipped that. I guess I wanted to go home sooner. All right, D on the action items, approve engagement agreement with DA Davidson for the selling of capital outlay certificates. We'll discuss needed to finance the proposed building addition.
So essentially what you're doing there in engagement is with DA Davidson, they will become your essential sales rep. That's who you're going to enter into those agreements that Jerry described on the phone conversation here. So that you're the one they are the one you are going to do business with. So that's all that engagement letter states.
So moved.
Moved by Neville,
Second.
Second by Schoenfelder. To approve the engagement agreement with D.A. Davidson for the selling of the capital outlay certificates. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
All right, no executive session. We adjourn at 8:05.
Need a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Schoenfelder.
Second, please.
Second by Prohl. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.